Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Erica, and in today's video, I'm going to be ranking for you my top 20 palettes for fall. All of these palettes I feel have very fall-esque color stories. Now, I don't really ever do my makeup based on the seasons necessarily, but I do think it is fun to think about what kind of eyeshadow palettes would be good for certain seasons. So that's my idea in doing this video. Plus, I love watching other people create seasonal palette type videos. I've done this, I think, ever since I started my channel. Actually, my very first video was my fave spring palettes. So, you know, kind of fun, kind of a tradition, I guess, I have here on my channel. A lot of people have this tradition on their channels. And I was just going to show you guys my top 20 eyeshadow palettes for fall. And I thought, no, make it more challenging and rank the palettes, which is always a very difficult task for me, right? I mean, you'd think, how hard is it to rank eyeshadow palettes? But when you love your eyeshadow palettes, it's hard to rank them. So just because a palette is lower in the rankings doesn't mean I don't like the palette, I don't enjoy the palette, that I'm not glad that I have the palette. It has nothing to do with it. I just tried to rank them on performance, my color story preference, formula, you know, that whole situation. So let me get into this ranking, starting off with the lowest ranked palette, palette number 20. The Plush Like Me palette from ColourPop. And I love the outer packaging. It's all velvety, well, not all velvety, but little spots of velvet here. Isn't that cute? And I got this palette from Teresa Starship. We were involved in a mystery box exchange group collab, and she sent this to me. And I have used it one time. I do need to use this again. But I think this is a very fall-esque color story. The rusts, the reds, the terracottas, beautiful shimmers in here, really nice mattes. I was really impressed with the formula of the shades that I used out of this palette when I created a look with this palette. Can I say the word palette one more time? It's just a really pretty neutral palette with some depth in here, some light in here, and I just felt like the look I put together with it was really nice. Number 19 is the Violet Voss All of You Forever. Now this palette I think came in a BoxyCharm, I'm pretty sure, and I've almost decluttered this a couple of times just because I don't use it a whole lot. And it's not as olive-y as I thought it would be. You know what I mean? Like when I first got this and opened it up, I was like, where's the olive? But you know, olives aren't just olivey green. You know, there's black olives, brown olives, what have you. So what the hell do I know? But I hold on to this palette because it does perform so well. I think Violet Voss has a wonderful formula. I did have some other smaller Violet Voss palettes from Ipsy. I think I got from Ipsy that I have decluttered just because, you know, I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes and I wasn't using them. But the quality and formula, very nice. And I do think this says fall. We've got like the browns and greens in here that are more fall leaning, I would say. Like, you know, this is a color story that I might see walking down a street in my neighborhood. The reason why it's ranked lower is just because I've almost decluttered it twice, but I do really like this palette, I do. Number 18 is the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. This I got off Amazon. I got this and the Urban Decay Primer Potion eyeshadow primer for 25 bucks together. I thought that was a really good deal. I think this is a stunning mustardy gold brown color story. And I've used this, I think, 4 or 5 times, I would say. And I've always been really impressed with the way the shimmers perform in here. The mattes are fine too, but the shimmers are gorgeous. This shade right here, this gold shade, is so beautiful on the lids. Just stunning. I like to combine it, this shade right here and this shade right here, these two, this one and that one. I don't know, I just think that looks so pretty. And this is something I need to use again soon. I think this is a perfect fall color story. This reminds me of like a fall leaf. You know, I see fall leaves that have all of these colors in them all the time. Palette number 17 is the Morphe Macon Bank palette. It's always hard for me to say that. And this to me is like going from summer into fall, like right when fall's coming around, because you still have the greens from summer, but then it's like slowly fading into fall here. That's what I see when I look at this color story. And this shade right here is my favorite shimmer shade out of this palette. It's kind of like golden peach. It's so beautiful. I love this yellow matte too. I love this green matte, and you know, just a really nice color story. Neutral options, pops of color. Love those kind of palettes. Number 16 is the Berry M Nude and Neutral Rich palette. And my dear friend Linda, who lives in Sweden, we met each other through Instagram, she sent me this palette. She had created a look with a Berry M palette and popped it up on her Instagram. And I said, ooh, that look is so beautiful. I really want to try that brand. And she said, well, how come you haven't tried it? And I said, well, I don't think I can get Berry M here in Oregon. I mean, I guess you can go onto the website and get it, but they don't sell this particular brand here in my state. And she said, well, I'm going to remedy that for you. And so she sent me some Berry M products and Makeup Mecca products as well. And I just love the cinnamony, chocolatey richness of this palette, and it works really well. Really nice quality formula in this palette. And this just reminds me of like a hot fall drink that I would love, like hot apple cider, peppermint mocha, caramel mocha, Mexi mocha, that cinnamony, chocolatey goodness. I live for those kind of drinks. And so when the fall comes around, that's where I'm headed, to the local coffee stand to load up on those kind of drinks. So yeah, that's really why I grabbed this palette. I mean, I do think it says fall, but it definitely reminds me of a hot fall drink. Number 15 is the Badass Beauties Field Op palette. And I really like this brand a lot. This is a US indie brand. I have a couple of their palettes. And this to me also is kind of like the summer leading into fall as well. The greens, the gunmetal gray, that really reminds me of the sky in Oregon where I live during the fall. That's really what the sky looks like. It's just very gray, very silvery. And then we also have these rich, warmer fall tones in here as well. I've used this a couple of times on my channel. I just love the quality and the performance of this palette. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, Badass Beauties has a few other palettes I don't have yet that I don't need, but you never know. Number 14 is the Yamoja palette from OPV Beauty. And I love the packaging. Isn't that beautiful? Just gorgeous. And this is a Black-owned UK indie brand that I'm a huge fan of. I also have their Spotlight palette. This initially belonged to Steph, and she just wasn't using it as much as she thought she would. She just doesn't really love neutral color stories. And we were on a video call one time, and she said, would you like this? And I'm like, yes. And I have used this before on my channel. I love the performance and the quality. Love this color story. Just beautiful. A lot of warmth in here, maybe a little bit of cool tone too stuff going on, but very fall-esque to me. The reds, the oranges, the rusts, even this pink color, I think says fall. And really enjoy it. Really enjoy this brand. And this is another brand I'd like to have a lot more things in my collection from. Number 13 is the ColourPop Boudoir Noir palette. And this is one of my absolute favorite color stories that I have in my collection because it's got the earthy grunginess to it. And this gold shimmer right here, this is called Sleep In. I know I've mentioned this multiple times when I've shown this palette. Is it my favorite gold shimmer that I have in my collection? It might be. It's so amazing. It's that thick, buttery, lovely texture. It stays put, like, you know, you put it on your lids and it stays there. It doesn't move. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of in this palette is this pressed glitter right here. It's not as chunky as some of the other ColourPop pressed glitters are, but it still makes me a little nervous. But I do think this color story says fall. Golds and browns and very fall leaf in appearance to me. Love it. Number 12 is the Notoriously Morbid Rusted Essence palette. And I do have shades from this palette on my eyelids today. And I think the look video that I created with this palette is coming up before this one. So you guys have already seen me use it. And I've used it before on my channel too. And I think this is definitely a fall color story, especially the rusts in here and like the kind of earthy greens in here. The reason why this is ranked lower is because I don't love these two shimmer, the formula. I don't know, man. It's taken me a minute to get used to that formula. It's kind of weird, but I want to keep messing around with it and try to master it if I can. You know, it's a beautiful palette. The mattes work really, really well. I think the packaging is super cute. Great fall color story. Number 11 is the America's Parks palette from Nomad Cosmetics. Love the packaging. I love all the packaging of all the Nomad Cosmetics palettes I have. And I think this absolutely says fall. And these are all the colors that you're going to see in Oregon in the fall. Because the greens stick around for a while here, I feel like. You know, I mean, obviously the leaves change to orange and yellow and brown and stuff. But the greens are holding their own for quite a while here. I love the performance, the quality, this color story I think is stunning. I love the greens. The green row is my absolute favorite. And I was gonna do a palette bingo with all of my Nomad palettes, but I think what I'm gonna do after talking to a few of you wonderful friends and subscribers of mine, I asked if, like, should I do palette bingos or multiple looks? And a couple of you said, no, do multiple looks. So I think that's gonna be coming on my channel over the next couple of months, are multiple looks videos with my Nomad Cosmetics palettes. Number 10 is the Goddess palette from Alter Ego. And this is duping the gold palette from Natasha Denona. And lovely color story. Very fall to me, very fall. Especially like towards the end of fall, like almost into winter when the leaves are just barely hanging on. You know, I feel like that's what the colors are at that point in fall here. I'm so happy I picked up this palette because I really wanted the Natasha Denona one. And this was much less money than the Natasha Denona one. And, you know, I know not everybody loves dupe palettes and da-da-da, but for those of us that are cheap, these work really well. The palette in the 9th spot is the ABH Jackie Aina palette. And I picked this up from Ipsy. They were selling this like in the Ipsy shop for like 25 bucks. And I'm like, hello, I'm getting it. And I definitely think this says fall. Even the purples in here, I think say fall because they're deeper purples. You know, they're not, I wouldn't say those are springtime or summertime purples necessarily. And I have used this palette multiple times. I think I've created, what, 2 videos using this palette on my channel. I love it. And I have to do this, you guys. I have to do this. This shade right here is my favorite shade in the palette, and it's Dwalas. Dwalas, Dwalas, Dwalas. I literally have to say that like 43 times. Every time I think about this palette, pull this palette out, use this palette, film with it, Dwalas is said like 905 times. Number 8 is the Avocado Toast palette from BH Cosmetics. Oh yeah, love this palette. This is one of my absolute favorite BH Cosmetics palettes. I do think that this color story does say fall. Again, maybe more towards the beginning of fall than the middle or end. I don't know. But everything in this palette works beautifully. Absolutely stunning formula. Stunning. This is one of BH Cosmetics' best formulas. Absolutely. I've used this twice, I think, on my channel too, right? At least twice. And I'm even thinking about maybe pulling this into one of my old school palette series videos. Do you think this is old school enough? I think it is. I've had this for over a year at least, but ooh yeah, love it. It's very avocado-y and very toasty too. The 7th palette is the Tiny Marvels palette that Sydney Grace did in collaboration with Mel Thompson. I love this. And I love having a part of Mel in my collection. Mel was one of my favorite creators. I miss her dearly. And this is such a gorgeous, unique color story. I don't have any other color story really like this in my collection with like the neutrals, but then the soft, beautiful, elegant, classy pops of color, you know? And everything works in here so well, so well. And my dear friend and subscriber, Tiramisu, she loves this brand, and I had never tried it before. And she said, well, they do their Christmas and July sales. Why don't you try picking something up? And I was like, okay, I will. I mean, she didn't force me. It was my choice. But I'm so happy that I heeded her advice and went to the site and picked up a few things during their Christmas and July sale. That is such a great sale. God, that's a good sale. I didn't get anything this past summer from Sydney Grace, which during that sale, which I kind of wish I had, because it's stupid not to. Their shadows are so beautiful and great quality, wonderful tones and colors and whatnot, you know, and this one just absolutely takes the cake. And I do think it's fall-esque. This reminds me of like a sunset in the fall here where I live. Totally. Palette number 6 is the Nomad from Juvia's Place. And this is my favorite Juvia's Place palette that I own in my collection. And I own a lot of Juvia's Place palettes, so that's saying something. Earthy, grungy, fall. I think this totally says fall, especially these shades right here. I mean, even these shades over here, everything I think in this palette does say fall. I love using this palette. And I have that weird thing with this palette, like I have with a lot of my palettes, where I want this to stay in my collection and last forever, so I don't use it nearly as often as I should. But I have to pull this out during this time of year. I mean, obviously you can pull out a palette any time of year that you want, but I definitely want to pull this out in fall and use it soon. Ugh, I love it. Number 5 is the Safari Rain from Colored Rain. And oh boy, do I love this palette. Look how beautiful that color story is. Ooh, I just used this in a video not too long ago and loved the look that I created. And so happy that I picked up this palette. They did re-release this palette. I know I mentioned that in the video where I used this palette. I don't know if it's still available. It may be long gone by now. But if you like this color story and you want a really good quality palette, go for it. Go for it. I would not steer you wrong with this palette. I really wouldn't. I really would not do that. Would I? No, I don't think I would. Number 4 is the Saints, Angels, Sinners Over the Moon palette. And I really felt like the outer packaging of this definitely says fall. You know, like a fall harvest moon picture. And the color story, even though it's small, is very diverse, very unique, very different. There's a lot of different things that you can do with this palette. And I've used this twice on my channel. Love both looks I did. One was a halo eye, which was, I struggle with halo eye, so I don't know if that was my favorite look with this palette, but who cares? Let's move on. This shade right here I still have not used yet, and it's so beautiful, that teal green. Yeah. But I don't know that not necessarily is a fall color, but the rest of these I think are very fall. Number 3 is the Everyday Sparkle palette from Ladybug Glow. Love the outer packaging. I love butterflies. And I am truly obsessed with this US indie brand. Absolutely obsessed. And every palette they release, I'm going to get. I'm definitely going to get. And there's a new one coming out on September 30th. I can't wait to get it. I saw it. I'm like, I have to have it. Now, this is a neutral palette. Yes, upon first glance. But when you really look at this palette and also you use this palette, you're going to find out that there's nothing, well, it's neutral leaning, but the shimmers, there's nothing neutral about the shimmers in here. Very multi-chrome, duochrome, metallic, flippy, just amazing. And the formula, just impeccable. One of the best indie brand formulas I have ever tried, hands down. Absolutely. So pretty. Number 2 is the Saints Angel Sinners, a fairy tale palette that Saints Angel Sinners did, obviously, in collaboration with Fairy Light, also known as Sophia Sadie. I just did a group collab creating a fall look with this palette, and I think we all nailed the fall in all of our looks with this palette. Beautiful, unique, diverse color story, tons of different options, lovely formula, quality, just absolutely adore this palette and adore this brand. And number 1 is the Beauty Bay Earthy Palette, 42 Pan Earthy Palette. And that's one of the main reasons why this got number 1, is just because it's huge. And it's got all the fall that you would need, I feel like, in a palette. You know, I mean, I know like you can still use blues and purples and blacks and grays and whatnot in your look for a fall look, absolutely. But to me, this palette really screams fall. You might argue that some of these shades up here are more spring in color or in tone, but still, I think put together with what's going on down here, I think everything just says fall to me. And I did do a 4 looks video with this palette bingo style. Each look was a palette bingo, and I had so much fun. And everything pretty much, I think, except for one shade I used, I wasn't super jazzed about, but everything else worked so well. Love the Beauty Bay formula, quality, their palettes. I'm obsessed also with Beauty Bay. I'm obsessed with a lot of brands. But yeah, I just felt like out of all the palettes that I have, this one truly says fall number 1 status. So there you have it. That was my ranking of my top 20 palettes for fall. Let me know if you have any of these palettes, what you think of them. Let me know what you think of my ranking. Let me know if you think I got it right. It's always such a challenge to rank palettes. And I'm sitting here now looking at the stacks that I created, this mess that I created, and I'm thinking, I don't think I got it right. I don't think I should have put that there. I should have put this there. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your lives to sit down and watch this video. If you're new here and you enjoyed what you saw, please consider subscribing, smash the like button, and of course, comment down below in the comment section. I love to chat with you guys there. And if you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. I cannot wait to see you again on my next video. But in the meantime, please take very good care of yourself. Be well, safe, happy. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Drop it.